Hi, welcome to Talent Sprint. In this video, we will look at theme detection. Now, as the name suggests, we will look at what is the underlying theme of the passage, or what is the passage referring to, right? What is the main essence that the passage is trying to convey? Now, this, I would say, is a miniature version of reading comprehension. In reading comprehension, you have about 5-6 passages where it becomes easier if you can come up with a one word or a one-line summary of that passage. It makes it easier while you answer questions, right? Likewise, in theme detection, the advantage is there are a couple of statements that follow the passage, and you will have to decide which of those statements best support the passage. So that's what theme detection is all about. And we will also look at certain strategies of how we can eliminate the wrong options, right? It's not enough if we just narrow down, and sometimes we get confused between 2 or 3 options. So we need to just fall back on the context. So theme detection is not just reading as it appears, but we need to also read between the lines. So let's look at our first passage. So our first passage has about just 4 sentences, right? And it begins with Emerson. Now, who is Emerson? For those of you who don't know, Ralph Waldo Emerson is an American essayist, lecturer, and poet, right? He is, seen as a champion of individualism and a critique of, countervailing pressures of society. Now, how does he disseminate his thoughts? Through dozens of published essays and through more than 1,500 public lectures across the United States. That's a little bit of background information for you about Emerson as a poet, but let's see what he has to say. Emerson said that the poet was landlord, sea lord, and air lord. The flight of imagination made the poet master of land, sea, and air. But a poet's dream of yesterday becomes today, and an actual achievement and a reality for all men. Even those who invented, improved, and perfected the airplane could hardly have dreamt of the possibility of flight into outer space. So that's about 4 sentences we have. Let's look at the statements. Statement A, all imaginations become a reality someday. Statement B, what man imagined has never been impossible. He has always turned it a reality through his conception of ideas and sheer hard labor. Statement C, seemingly impossible imaginations make one a good poet. Statement D, man has reached the climax of technological development with his exploration into outer space. All right. So we have these 4 statements. Let's address one statement at a time. All imaginations. Statement A, it says all imaginations become a reality someday. Is that what the passage supports? Let's go back to the passage and see. We have this word saying all imaginations. Well, the passage is talking about one particular imagination, not all imaginations. So we can safely eliminate statement A. Statement B, what man imagined has never been impossible. He has always turned it a reality through his conception of ideas and sheer hard labor. Now, if we look at the passage, that's exactly what it supports. Right? Because it says the flight of imagination, second line, the flight of imagination made the poet master of land, sea, and air. But a poet's dream of yesterday becomes today an actual achievement and a reality for all men. Even those who invented, improved, and perfected the airplane could hardly have dreamt of the possibility of flight into outer space. So the second statement, the second, third, and fourth line kind of strongly support that. But let's look at third statement. Seemingly impossible imaginations make one a good poet. No, the reference that the passage is making is not about what constitutes a good poet. So again, we can safely eliminate option C. Option D, man has reached the climax of technological development with his exploration into outer space. Again, the passage does not support that because he hasn't reached the climax of his technological development. We know that. So we can go ahead and safely say that statement B is what the passage supports. There is an example given in the passage, and we know that that's the statement that the passage supports. So for the first theme detection passage, the answer choice is statement B. Let's move on to our second passage. The school has always been the most important means of transferring the wealth of tradition from one generation to the next. This applies today in an even higher degree than in former times, for through the modern development of economy, the family as bearer of tradition and education has become weakened. Now let's look at our statements. This passage best supports the statement that for transferring the wealth of tradition from one generation to the next, what are my options? Statement A, there are means other than the school. Statement B, several different sources must be tried. Option C, economic development plays a crucial role. Option D, modern technology must be put to use. Option E, family as ever is the most potent means. Potent again meaning powerful, just in case there was a vocabulary hindering your understanding, right? So we have these 5 statements and we need to see which supports. But thankfully, there is a context. It says, what does the passage support? For transferring the wealth of tradition from one generation to the next, which is the one that we're looking at. That's what we need to look at. Let's fall back on the passage. It says, the first line says, the school has always been the most important means of transferring the wealth of tradition from one generation to the next. So we understand that even in the subsequent sentences, there is nothing else that the passage is strongly supporting in terms of transferring the wealth of tradition from one generation to the other. So statement A doesn't hold good, right? In terms of there are means other than the school. No, that's not what the passage is supporting. B, several different sources must be tried. We don't have any proof or evidence from the passage supporting that. C, economic development plays a crucial role. Well, let's go back to the passage and see. It says in the second line, this applies today in an even higher degree than in former times, for through the modern development of economy. What applies today? Transferring the wealth of tradition from one generation to the next is more even today. Through what? Modern development of economy. So for me, the second line is strongly supporting option C. Economic development plays a crucial role. But let's fall back on the next 2 options and see if that also fits the bill. Modern technology must be put to use. There is no reference made in the passage to support that. E, family as ever is the most potent means. We know that's not the fact, because if you look at the last line of the passage, it says the family as bearer of tradition and education has become weakened. So we understand that out of the given 5 options, option C, economic development plays a crucial role, because both the first and the second line. The first line brings in the background, as in the laying the foundation, and then the second line kind of strongly supports option or statement C. So for the second passage, theme detection, our answer option is option C. Economic development plays a crucial role. So this passage best supports the statement that for transferring the wealth of tradition from one generation to the next, economic development plays a crucial role. Let's move on to our third passage. Reading. To forgive an injury is often considered to be a sign of weakness. It is really a sign of strength. It is easy to allow oneself to be carried away by resentment and hate into an act of vengeance, but it takes a strong character to restrain those natural passions. The man who forgives an injury proves himself to be the superior of the man who wronged himself and puts the wrongdoer to shame. So let's look at the statements that we have. So the passage best supports which of these 5 statements? Statement A, the sufferer alone knows the intensity of his sufferings. Statement B, natural passions are difficult to suppress. Statement C, people tend to forgive the things happened in the past. Statement D, mercy is the noblest form of revenge. And statement E, a person with calm and composed nature has depth of thought and vision. Okay, so let's go statement by statement. Statement A, the sufferer alone knows the intensity of his sufferings. Well, we know for a fact that the passage does not support that. there is not much reference made to that statement in the passage. Right? Let's move on to B. Statement B. Natural passions are difficult to suppress. Again, if you look at the second line, it says it is easy to allow oneself to be carried away by resentment and hate into an act of vengeance, but it takes a strong character to restrain those natural passions. So it doesn't say that natural passions are difficult to suppress, but it says it takes a stronger heart, right? It takes a strong character to restrain them. So statement B is also, we can eliminate that. Option C. People tend to forgive the things happened in the past. There is no reference or backup or proof from the passage that supports that. D. Mercy is the noblest form of revenge. Now let's look at the passage again. So if you look at the passage, the topic sentence and the closing sentence both support that statement. To forgive an injury is often considered to be a sign of weakness. It is really a sign of strength. So showing mercy to someone is actually a sign of strength. That's what it says. And look at the last closing sentence. It says the man who forgives an injury proves himself to be the superior of the man who wronged himself and puts the wrongdoer to shame. So both the topic sentence and the closing sentence support statement D. Mercy is the noblest form of revenge. Right? When you forgive someone, they feel so bad, and kind of think about what they did to you. Right? And what about statement E? A person with calm and composed nature has depth of thought and vision. Again, the passage does not support that statement at any point of time. Right? So having looked at the passage, we know that statement D is what the passage strongly supports when we looked both at the topic and the closing sentence. Let's move on to our next passage. Reading. Due to enormous profits involved in smuggling, hundreds of persons have been attracted towards this anti-national activity. Some of them became millionaires overnight. India has a vast coastline both on the eastern and western coast. It has been a heaven for smugglers who have been carrying on their activities with great impunity. There is no doubt that from time to time certain seizures were made by the enforcement authorities during raids and ambush, but even allowing these losses, the smugglers made huge profits. So are there any words that are hindering your understanding of the passage? What is impunity? Impunity is exemption from punishment or penalty or harm. And what about ambush? Ambush is the act of lying in wait and suddenly attacking someone, right? So having said this, let's look at our statements. Statement A. So the passage best supports which of these four statements? Statement A. Smuggling hampers the economic development of a nation. Statement B. Smuggling ought to be curbed. Statement C. Authorities are taking strict measures to curb smuggling. Statement D. Smuggling is fast increasing in our country owing to the quick profit it entails. Okay. So again, smuggling hampers the economic development of a nation. Well, what does the passage have to say? Let's look back. If you look at again the topic sentence and the closing sentence, it says, due to enormous profits involved in smuggling, hundreds of persons have been attracted towards this anti-national activity. Some of them became millionaires overnight. And then if you look at the closing statement, it says there is no doubt that from time to time certain seizures were made by the enforcement authorities during raids and ambush, but even allowing these losses, the smugglers made huge profits. So having looked at the topic and the closing sentence, we know that the passage best supports statement D. Smuggling is fast increasing in our country owing to the quick profit it entails. Statement C can be eliminated. Authorities are taking strict measures to curb smuggling? No, not at all. Why is that so? Let's look back at the passage. See, the topic, the closing sentence again says there is no doubt that from time to time certain seizures were made by the enforcement authorities. So they're not taking strict measures to curb smuggling altogether. So statement C is not what the passage supports. Smuggling ought to be curbed. Yes, it ought to be curbed, but the passage is actually just talking about how smuggling is actually a profit-making business, right? A. Smuggling hampers the economic development of a nation. Well, that's again something that the passage is not supporting, right? So we know for a fact that our answer option to this passage lies in statement D, the last statement. Smuggling is fast increasing in our country owing to the quick profit it entails. Let's move to our next theme detection passage. Reading. Industrial exhibitions play a major role in a country's economy. Such exhibitions, now regularly held in Delhi, enable us to measure the extent of our own less advanced industrial progress and the mighty industrial power and progress of countries like the UK, USA and Russia, whose pavilions are the centers of the greatest attention and attractions. Okay? So, the passage best supports the statement that industrial exhibitions, let's look at our options that we have. We have 4 statements. Statement A, greatly tax the poor economies. Statement B, are more useful for the developed countries like USA, whose products stand out superior to those of the developing countries. Statement C, are not of much use to the countries that are industrially backward. Statement D, boost up production qualitatively and quantitatively by analytical comparison of a country's products with those of the developed countries. Okay, so let's go statement by statement. Statement A, the industrial exhibitions greatly tax the poor economies. No, that's not what the passage supports. Statement B, are more useful for the developed countries like USA, whose products stand out superior to those of the developing countries. Again, we don't have to look at this statement as the passage supporting it, because we have proof from the passage that says such exhibitions, now regularly held in Delhi, enable us to measure. So it's happening here as well. So it's not just for the developed countries or more useful for the developed countries. Option C, are not of much use to the countries that are industrially backward. That is again incorrect, because it proves beneficial for us to compare with developed countries like USA and UK, right? So having looked at the passage, we understand that statement D is what the passage best supports. It boosts up production qualitatively and quantitatively by analytical comparison of a country's products with those of the developed countries. And where is the proof from the passage? Right here. It says, enable us to measure the extent of our own less advanced industrial progress and the mighty industrial power and progress of countries like the UK, USA and Russia. So basically it gives us a platform to kind of compare, right? That's what it says, both qualitatively and quantitatively. So statement D is what the passage best supports. So if you look at theme detection, as a question type, it's pretty simple, where while we read the passage itself, if we are able to analyze what the underlying theme or essence of the passage is, we don't have to waste a lot of time picking out statements that the passage strongly support. But just to make sure, we always have to lean back on the passage, so that we don't pick the wrong statement or the wrong answer choice. So keep practicing, and I will catch you guys in another session on another topic.